I think the biggest thing is that there is the misconception that there's not the homeless in rural communities. Ours looks a lot different. In the summers especially, you're not seeing them in town. They're down by the rivers, they're up in the canyons, they're in campgrounds, they're very spread. In the winter out here, again, they're not on Main Street. What they have found is more like your abandoned campers. Found land that's out in the middle of nowhere, and they're in an abandoned camper with a propane tank, and it's really dangerous. Someone who comes to us who is literally homeless, we essentially do an assessment of what their needs are, what we can help them with. We then help them get the food from the food pantry, make sure they're connected with, again, all the resources. We're doing case management, whether it's helping them with employment or education or safety. Mental health is a big one. We have major support and partnerships with our mental health providers, making sure that they're getting assistance that way. With our Pamela Atkinson rapid rehousing, we do about 4 months worth of rapid rehousing. During that time, we're also trying to see if they can get on, like, say, Section 8 housing, or we're getting them into low-income housing, things like that that's going to help them maintain their housing.
When people donate to the Pamela Atkinson Homeless Trust Fund, their donation, alongside thousands of others, really has a huge impact on thousands of people's lives.
Supporting this funding helps someone who is feeling really worthless in their moments, giving them that hope and feeling that they can move on. I would like people to know that there is homeless in rural communities. It's just not as seen.